Thank you very much to our speakers. I hope you can hear me. Uh, this was a very comprehensive uh, topic on rhinoplasty, something that's very close to my heart. Uh, First and foremost, I'd like to ask everybody to turn on their camera. We want to show I want to see all your beautiful faces. I know you're all at home, and at least this will serve as our picture taking. I'll also turn on my video. Okay. So thank you for the speakers for sharing their expertise. They are all our experts in their field. And because of this, let's start our question and answer portion. Can I get your first question? Okay. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the questions. And please all note that Dr. Le is also here to answer questions for us. So if you have questions also for Dr. Le, you may also address it here. Okay. Um, I'd like to start the first question myself from for Dr. Bafaki. Thank you. In the Philippines, there's a lot of augmentation done, but in we also have reduction rhinoplasty done here. And of course, my personal experience, I have more augmentation than reduction. But there are a lot of Filipinos with very deep radix
My
and or who have excessive radix. Would you recommend using a rotary drill to drill down the nasal or the radix or the nasal bone a bit on the bone side?
why my in my the sound in my headphone is has a big echo, so
Oh,
I cannot listen well. Can you try? Do you have the same problem?
um, I hear you loud and clear. I'll try to turn off.
Commentary?
I'll
Do
turn
you
off
have
all my.
the echo sound?
Hi, Dr. Montri.
But
Hello, hello.
talking is okay, but
Hello,
listening,
Dr. Monty.
I think
the
I think
sound is
Dr.
very trouble.
I think Dr. Lehan, you are still your Zoom is still open. Your
Yes.
Zoom application. I think you should turn that off. You might have
Okay,
two devices that are open.
okay,
I
okay.
suggest you turn off the Zoom so that it won't echo.
Uh,
So you just listen
okay,
to StreamYard.
the same.
Okay. Is Dr. Bafaki still present? I Okay. If there are other questions from the audience, you can post it now. Okay. Here, I have a question from Dr. Jafar. I'll read it out. To Dr. Yin, what is the most common dorsal augmentation material used in China? Is Dr. Yin still around? Um, Another question from Dr. Aguila to Dr. Le. Um, the dissection of the prezygomatic space. Uh, how can we avoid injury to the temporal branch of the facial nerve?
Okay, thank you for your question. And can I share my screen?
Technical, can
Can
we
I?
share the
Yeah,
screen
yeah.
of
Do
Dr.
you?
Lehan?
Okay, okay. So do you see my screen now?
Josh, can you help us with the sharing of the screen of Dr. Lehan? Dr. Lehan, I think you have to turn on your Zoom again and share your
Okay,
screen.
I close. I close.
Yeah.
I have to leave the meeting, right?
You just open the Zoom and you can.
Now I see all of you, but I cannot share my screen. Hmm. Okay, we for to avoid the damage the facial nerve, you have to know exactly where the branches are, and we open exposes mask, and we have a draw following the schema of Dr. Brian Mendelsohn, who have studied very carefully about the location of the branches of the facial nerve and the location of the facial spaces.
Dr.
Okay,
Lihan, Dr.
yes,
Lihan, do you open the SMAS after the parotid gland?
okay. I don't open the parotid gland. I open the SMAS, and then we do the measurement. We
Mhm.
draw the line from the upper of the tragus to the nasal alar, one line, and the second line is the the lower tip of the tragus to the nasal to the mouth angle, and the second line is from the lobule to the angle of the mandible. So at the first line, we calculate 4.5 centimeter from the tragus, and then at the middle line, we take the distance 3 centimeter from the tragus in advance, and for the lower line, the distance is 2 centimeter from the lobule. So this this line mark the of the posterior end of the premasseteric space, peric space, and we dissect, cut the mass, and we use the vertical vertical spreading of the scissor, and we go into the spaces. This is very safe because the branches of facial nerve following the ligament are in the boundary of the spaces. One key to avoid damaging the facial nerve is you have to inject a large amount of the tumescent fluid. Secondly, spreading movement of the scissor. And thirdly, you use your finger to dissect the spaces larger, and you go to the target. Where is your target? Your target is jawline, the nasolabial fold, and marionette line. So by the digital dissection, we can dissect largely the lateral soft tissue under the mass. For the zygomatic area, we follow from the temporal area. We keep closer to submass, to closer to the deep temporal fascia, to keep very close to the bone, dissect the lateral orbital ligament here, and we dissect the zygomatic ligament here. And then from here, we enter the pre-zygomatic space. And we through this space, we dissect the anterior face of the maxilla. We go to the nasolabial fold, etc. So in the video, I show you that I can lift the lateral face upward by using digital dissection and tumescent injection. We can avoid to damage the facial nerve. I don't have any case of the facial nerve damage in my series.
Okay, doctor, thank you. So you lift the SMAS with your fingers under the SMAS, going to the marionette lines and the nasolabial fold.
Yes. Control here.
Okay.
Digital
Okay.
dissection. Yes. No. We release only the zygomatic ligament and lateral orbital ligament. And the premasseteric ligament is already attrition of these ligament. So the premasseteric space become bigger and go into further and fall down to and created the jaw, created the prominent mandibular fold marionette line. Yeah. No. Your mandibular ligament, you have to keep it because it keep your chin line. You never cut the mandibular ligament. Yeah, it's very important. Next, okay. So we okay. In my presentation, I show you. I go to the upper cervical neck. Upper cervical neck is it's almost behind the mandibular angle. The same plane, submass plane, under the SMAS, and we go down, and digital dissection, we can release largely, and we pull it and fix it to the mastoid process. Yeah, maybe no, at the it's 2-3 centimeter from the above beyond the mandibular angle is enough, and the tension is more important after the dissection. Yeah. You use finger.
Okay. Let's welcome Dr. Bafakir, who just recently joined us. Hi, Dr. Bafakir. Okay, so if you have questions again for Dr. Bafakir, you can address him. Dr. Correa was earlier raising his hand. Is Dr. Correa, do you have audio? Dr. Correa. And I think Dr. Aguila also has a question. Dr. Aguila. I think I'll read out for the question of Dr. Aguila. For clarification, I think this is
Okay.
for Dr. Le again.
Okay,
For
I can
clarification.
explain this. Uh, because I cannot show again my slides, so please see this. At this temporal area, the temporal area, we do biplane the dissection. One plane is from the to release the scalp from the superficial temporal fascia from the incision to as far around the 2 centimeter from the orbital line, from orbital rim, and then we go through the superficial temporal fascia, and we dissect under the superficial temporal fascia. That means we go keep closer to the deep temporal fascia, and this is a very safe plane, and we go forward to the orbital rim, and we go down to the malabone, zygomatic arc, malabone, and anterior face of the maxilla. At the anterior face of the maxilla, we have the prezygomatic space here. This space is a space under the orbicularis oculi. It's free of nerve and vessel. The zygomatic nerve is here. It's here.
Okay.
The temp and here. So we go between the two branches of the facial nerve. Blunt the dissection so we don't cut them.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, Dr. Le. We just have a limited time, and I'm sure
Okay.
your topic is very interesting. Even I am very interested in your topic. But we have another question for Dr. Yap. For Dr. Yap, does the texture of the PCL make it more prone to biofilm? From
Okay. The PCL is, if you would feel the PCL, it's like plastic. It is solid with the big holes in it. As is, I don't think it will be a good source of bacterial infection. What the infection is usually secondary to chronic pressure and then extrusion, and then infection sets in. As is, I don't think it can be a source of infection. But just the same, observe sterility, and I always soak them in gentamicin solution, antibiotic solution, before I cut and put them in the tissue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yap, for answering that question. I think I had a question earlier for Dr. Samir. Um, in reduction of the nasal bone, would you advise using a micro drill to drill down the nasal bone to put down the bony part of the nasal bone down a bit in Western noses?
It's a good technique. This is most of our colleagues using the drilling, but in my hand, I find this is the rasping is the traditional old technique. In my hand, it will be it's better, but it's the drilling. It's give you a smooth, nice service.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Another question from you from the audience. I lost the question. Hold on. Um, what other materials do you use for putting on the radix?
Radix, I usually like the crushed or diced cartilage in the fascia lata. Most of my colleagues like the temporalis fascia more, but the fascia lata, I feel it's available most of the time without doing any donor harm to the patient. But also the septal cartilage and the conchal cartilage can be also used, and the rib cartilage. I use most of the time also the radiated rib cartilage, or to use as a crushed cartilage. But also, if you are also removing the hum, you can use that piece of tissue to after reshape it to augment the radix again, and it will take more softer and smooth align with the nasal dorsum.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Um, uh, do you have
Also,
any other questions for
another
the
point,
audience?
you can use the fascia lata also. You fold it in a layers. It gives you a good result for the augmenting the radix.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Um, I think there's another question, but it's for Dr. Montri, but it's regarding the SMAS, and his lecture earlier was on rhinoplasty. I think the person asking this is referring to Dr. Le, who's not right in the room right now. Um, anyway, I'd like to plug in also a question for Dr. Montri. Um, it's nice to see you, Dr. Montri, again, but not in person. We met years ago. And do you always use your rib graft for a primary rhinoplasty? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Montri. The last question is addressed to Dr. Yap. Apart from cartilages, concal and costal, what other autologous materials can be used to cover the PCL? Can fat, tendon, fascia be used? This is from Dr. Fajardo.
Okay, remember that PCL, it is just a scaffold as a future regenerative material. So whatever you place beside the PCL, that will be the tissue after 2 years. Therefore, if you use your PCL as a support graft in rhinoplasty, you should have cartilage beside the PCL, because after 2 years, all the cartilage cells will grow into the PCL. If you just use PCL for volume, for example, for as a button graft, then you can cover it with soft tissue. It can be fascia, it can be fat. For me, I usually use fascia or if or a ear cartilage. It's okay. So it all depends on what is your intent of using the PCL. The most important thing there is avoid direct contact of the PCL to your mucosa. That's why in your rhinoplasty, if you would see, we have the membranous septum. So the term membranous septum, it means you don't have anything in between. It is just soft tissue. Mucosa, and soft tissue. There's nothing in between. So if you have PCL in that area, cover with some cartilage for two purposes, for protection and at the same time for future support because cartilage will grow in.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yap. I hate to end this session. So much questions. Even I have so much questions. Rhinoplasty is such a complicated cosmetic procedure, but once you master it, you know, you're master of cosmetic surgery. You master rhinoplasty. So thank you again to all our speakers, and I can present now the certificate of appreciation. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise. So I'll be presenting the certificates now. So Josh, can we make the certificate a little big? Hold on, I'll try to make it bigger on my screen. Okay. This certificate of appreciation is presented to Dr. Eduardo Yap, FPSCS, for his lecture on PCL rhinoplasty in this International Congress Virtual Summit 2020, Manila, Philippines. Thank you, Dr. Yap. I'd like to virtually present this certificate, and I'd like to present another certificate of appreciation to Dr. Yin Mei Lin for his very outstanding lecture in this International Congress Virtual Summit 2020. Dr. Win, I'd like to virtually give you your certificate. And next certificate, please. Okay. This certificate goes to Dr. Montri Kamunta for his outstanding lecture in the International Congress Virtual Summit 2020, Manila, Philippines. I'd like to virtually present this certificate to you. Hopefully in the future, we'll be presenting certificates and see each other personally. Okay. Next certificate, please. Okay. Next certificate goes to Dr. Samir Bafakir for his outstanding lecture, also on rhinoplasty, reduction rhinoplasty in this International Congress Virtual Summit 2020. Okay. And the certificate of Dr. Montri, I think we missed out one more. Okay, I'd like to present this certificate to Dr. Montri Kamunta for his outstanding lecture here in this International Congress Virtual Summit 2020. Is that the last certificate we have? Yeah, I think the certificate of Dr. Le has been presented earlier by Dr. Yuma. Okay, thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for sharing this day with us. And this was a very successful Congress, and I hope that you learned, and when we get back to our practice, we have new tools in our hands. Thank you.